Here we go again. How many times do we have to go through this? I don't know what else to say. I don't want to have kids. It's just, there are so many signs pointing to a life without children. Think about it. We live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. There's no way we could raise a child here. And neither of us wants to move. But we're spending everything we're making as it is. And I don't want to have to suffer. I don't want to have to eat Spam and macaroni and cheese every night because we don't have enough money to feed our children. I mean, why put ourselves through that? That is unnecessary suffering. Hell, we live in LA. That's unnecessary suffering as it is. But add baby clothes, a car seat, crib, bottles, diapers, toys, and all that crap to the pile, and we're in for a lifetime of debt. And just because every other American is swimming in debt for the rest of their lives does not mean that we have to also. I don't want to feel like I'm drowning. I don't want to feel stuck. Not to mention the fact that we have a serious overpopulation issue right now. Don't you think that we have an obligation not to have kids? I mean, we owe it to our society to not add to the biggest problem that we're facing. This is hard for me too. Don't think that it isn't. Imagine how I feel when we're at the park and I see you glance over at a little girl with pigtails and I can see your heart is just melting and mine is breaking. I know how badly you want to have kids, and that's how badly I don't want them. But you know what? It isn't fair. When we first got together, you agreed with me. You didn't want to have kids either, and I thought it was a perfect match. How can you just go and change your mind like that? You can't do that. I don't want you to think that I'm going to change my mind. Just because I love kids does not mean that I want my own. It's too much responsibility. You have to give up everything. You have to give up your identity because they come first. And if you don't put them first, then suddenly you're a terrible parent. Imagine what a horrible parent I would be, really. I freak out when people leave dirty dishes in the sink. Well, kids don't clean up after themselves, and I don't feel like cleaning up after them, so what, you're miraculously going to become Mr. Mom? I cannot imagine life without you. That's why this hurts so much. We were meant for each other, and yet there is this huge space between us that just keeps getting bigger and bigger every time we have this conversation. And I don't know what else to say. Do you want kids or me? I wrote that monologue for an acting class in 2005, the year before Andy and I got married. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm pregnant. There it is. This is not just a fat suit and a padded bra. This is the real deal. I'm due in 5 weeks. And for 15 years of my adult life, I was pretty dead set against having kids. It's been an interesting ride. But how did I get here, though? Well, clearly I had sex, so, I mean, that seems to be a good place to start. Hey, Charisse, guess what happened this weekend? Oh yeah, you guys remember this, right? Yeah, you remember how to fold notes. Now this was pre-text messaging, right? You fold it up like this. Oh, memories. I know. And you tuck it in. Oh yeah. Yes, it was in Jason's car. We spent the night together. For the record, I had told my mom that I was spending the night with Charisse that night. Yeah, it did hurt a little bit, but it's okay. He was so sweet, and he took his time, and he told me that it wasn't going to hurt for very long. He is so experienced. He had had sex with exactly one other girl by that point. Yeah, I did bleed a little bit, but that's the price you pay, I guess. We were making out at first, and then I went down on him, and then he told me to take off all my clothes, and then we had sex. We did it again in the morning before we left. The car was covered in steam. I'm surprised nobody saw us. I love him so much. He is so amazing. I can't wait to do it again. He's coming on my church retreat this weekend. And we can totally sneak off after prayer session. That Friday, I packed up my school backpack for the church retreat. In order to make room for my Discman, notice I said Discman, not Walkman, I had to clean out the front pocket of my backpack. In an effort to do this very quickly, I just grabbed everything in the pocket and threw it on the kitchen table and left for the weekend. What I didn't realize was what was inside that backpack pocket. Oh, Angie? I found something of yours. Fuck me! My mom found my sex note to Charisse! What if your dad had found this before I did? Did you tell Dad? No, I didn't, and I won't. Well, thank God for that. I want you to know that having sex does not define you as a woman. Any boy that makes you feel like you have to have sex with him is not a boy worth dating. What is she talking about? I wanted to have sex with Jason. I loved him. And the only way I could really tell him is to have sex with him. It's what you do. Honey, I love you, and I don't want you to get hurt. I'm not gonna get hurt, Mom. I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm a woman now. I can make decisions for myself. I know what I'm doing. God! Oh, I hate my life. It was outbursts like that that garnered me the nickname Katie Kaboom that year. She was a pretty terrible person. My sister saw the show on opening night, and she said, "You realize that on a scale of 1 to 10, Katie Kaboom was at about a 7. Yeah. That's how horrible she was. I wasn't about to ruin my life by getting pregnant in high school, so I made a conscious choice to protect myself. I did not get on birth control to help cramps, acne, mood swings, migraines, or weight issues. Plain and simple, I was having sex. And I did not want to get pregnant. Now, at 16 years old, I didn't know where to go to get birth control, except our family doctor. I was covered under my family's insurance there, and he had known me for several years, so it seemed safe enough. He did insist that I tell my mom before he wrote the prescription. I armed my new sexual life with the protection of birth control. After a year of dating Jason, I remember sitting on the couch with him one day. So, do you see yourself ever getting married? Yeah? Could you see yourself marrying someone like me? I don't think I could ever marry you. Why? You don't really have the features that I'd want in my kids. In case you didn't get the full impact of that statement, he told me I wasn't pretty enough to have his children. And instead of telling him to promptly go to hell, I agreed with him. Yeah, you're probably right. I wouldn't want to subject any other human being to my features either. Let's just say that after he cheated on me with my sister's best friend and we broke up, I came to my senses. And I never let a boy treat me like that again. After high school, I changed a lot. I started reading books that really rearranged my thinking about life. I started to understand that one of the biggest problems that our planet and our species faces is simply overpopulation. Now, I understand this subject is extremely taboo, but I believe that we love to neglect this issue and discuss other issues like global warming, depletion of natural resources, animal extinction, extreme poverty, famine, and the like. Most of which can be, albeit loosely, tied back to the fact that there are simply too many people on this planet. Currently, there are 7.239 billion people on Earth. The year I was born, there were 4.146 billion people. When my mom was born, roughly 2.3 billion, and when her mom was born, about 1.7 billion. In 1880, 978 million. Now, whether or not you agree with me that overpopulation is a huge issue, that was the first thing on my list of why I don't want kids. I figured that if I could live my life not having kids, I could help the world out. Now, to an extent, I still do believe this. I believe that more people need to think long and hard about their reasoning for having kids instead of assuming it's just what you do. Now, I want to make something clear here. I'm one of 5 kids. My 3 older siblings have 5 kids between them. I love being part of a big family. I love kids, and I always have. I'm good with kids. So deciding not to have them was not easy, but once I did, that list of why I don't want kids kept getting bigger and bigger. On a side note, thank God for gay people. Seriously. Yes. Look, many gay couples decide not to even have kids, but the ones that do make a conscious choice and oftentimes spend thousands of dollars to have kids. There's no gay couple that says, oops, oh my God, we're pregnant, like a straight couple does. They often adopt kids that were results of unplanned pregnancies of straight relationships. Now, believe what you will, but I personally believe that gay people are a perfect example of how human evolution has answered the overpopulation issue. They don't make mistakes. They consciously create families. On January 2nd, 2000, just after the Millennium New Year, I met my husband. Both fresh out of college, we've been cast on tour on a children's musical theater show from New York to Miami for 5 months called Huck and Tom and the Mighty Mississippi, which is basically a 1-hour version of the show Big River. He was cast as Huckleberry Finn, and I was Aunt Polly. Now, the theater put us up in the same house, so we've lived together since the day we met. And when I met him, I knew the search was over. We were 23 at the time, and we fell in love very quickly. I saw sparks flying off his head during our first conversation, which was about 3 books that we had both read that were important to our development into adulthood. We had met people who'd read 1 or 2 of those books, but never someone who'd read all 3. These books were really important to us. The books were The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, Ishmael by Daniel Quinn, and Mutant Message Down Under by Marlo Morgan. I knew that I'd found the one I'd be with for the rest of my life. I was so happy. The first 2 weeks had been spent going to rehearsal for 8 hours, then spending the next 12 hours talking to this man who I knew to be the love of my life. Running on about 4 hours of sleep a night made me giddy, alive, and in love. The next 5 months only got better. Let me just say, if you can survive a 5-month children's theater tour in a van with 5 other actors, crammed with the sets, props, costumes, audio equipment, and the cast luggage, you know your relationship is meant to last. You either never see those people again, or you end up getting married. We were meant to be. We finished each other's sentences. We read each other's minds, and we still do. We have a very special connection. One of the reasons that drew me to Andy was that he agreed with me about not wanting to have kids. We were so selfish. We were young adults who were excited about living in our 20s. Screw what society planned out for us. We were not going to live our lives the same way everyone else does. Go to college, get a job, get married, have kids, retire, and die. We were going to do it differently. Go on tour, have careers in Los Angeles, travel, make lots of money. Live a season at Beaver Creek, Colorado, teaching snowboarding. Go on safari in Africa. Live in France for a year. Backpack through Europe. Go off the grid and live in a yurt in the middle of nowhere with no electricity just for the experience. No way were we going to live our lives the same way everyone else does, just because it's what you do, not us. Gradually, over the years, Andy started to change his mind about having kids. I thought that at first that it was just talk, but then I realized that he was really serious. Time went on and we got married in 2006, despite our differing opinions on having kids. But I continued to protect myself with birth control. And how old are you? 30? Ah, yes, I see. And are you married? Yes, I am. Ah, yes, I see. And you have no children yet? No, we don't. I don't think we'll ever have kids. I just need to get a refill on my birth control. Ah, yes, I see. My daughter is your age and she keeps telling me the same thing. And I keep telling her that one day she will not have the ability anymore and she will regret letting the opportunity pass her by. Well, thank God, not my mother. Yeah, I have thought a lot about it, and I don't think we're going to have kids. I just need to get a refill on my birth control so that it doesn't happen by accident. Ah, yes, I see. I will write you a prescription, but do think about it. It will change your life. Yeah, no shit, it'll change my life. That's precisely why I don't want to have them. Thanks. As time went on, my list of why I don't want kids kept getting longer and longer. I'd be going through security at the airport, watching a family of 4 try to get through TSA in under 2 hours. It's very easy to be annoyed and judgmental when you see mom, dad, 4-year-old, and a newborn taking up your precious time in line. How dare they make me 2 minutes later than I would have been otherwise? A trip to the bathroom can be an ordeal when you have kids. Going to the grocery store can become a nightmare. Leaving the house every day requires packing luggage and snacks. The little things become an inconvenience. See, that's why I don't want to have kids. Every little thing takes forever. We'd be at the movies, and just after the first scene, right when they've gripped you into the story, I'd hear a kid say, "Mommy, I have to go potty." Oh, now? How inconvenient. Things like this would just confirm the fact that I didn't want to have kids. Thank God I don't have to get up out of my seat at a time like this. How rude of that child! How dare they? I know, selfish, right? I was fully aware of how selfish I was being, and I loved it. I loved that I could come home and watch a rated R movie at full sound on the couch, completely naked, eating ice cream right from the container if I wanted. I loved that I could read a book wherever I wanted and never get interrupted. I loved that we could take a spontaneous trip to Vegas and get wasted all weekend just because we felt like it. I reveled in the fact that I didn't have to answer to anybody. I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and no one was going to stop me. See, that's why I don't want to have kids. Less personal time. One night I was watching the movie Temple Grandin at home. It's a true story about a woman with autism who pretty much single-handedly changed the way beef is processed in this country. She's an amazing woman who's affected many lives. And all I could think was how I'd have a really hard time if I had a kid with autism. I don't think I could handle it. If I didn't have a perfectly healthy baby, I would not be able to manage. See, that's why I don't want to have kids. Birth defects. People told me along the way, don't wait too long. You'll regret it forever if you don't have kids. Eventually, you won't be able to have them, and then it'll be too late. But my biological clock was still not ticking. I think the battery must be dead. When I told people that I didn't want to have kids, they would ask emphatically, why? As if it was a completely alien thing to say. They'd say, oh, you should just have them, trust me. With my list and my resolve, I wasn't going to be able to change my mind that quickly. It became more and more apparent that Andy was not going to change his mind. So we decided to go to therapy to work this out. I mean, we were both head over heels in love with each other still, but we knew we needed to work through this. It's a big contention between many couples. Although I would guess that it's usually the other way around, that it's typically the woman who wants to have kids and the man that doesn't. And since women are on a biological clock, there's a lot more pressure on the man in that case. Andy didn't pressure me at all, but it was an issue with which we needed help. So, Angie, why don't you tell me your side? Well, I mean, I wanted to have kids when I was really young, but I started to change my mind when I really looked into the logistics of it all. And now I am constantly reminded why I'm glad I don't have kids. They change everything. You're right. They do change everything. But sometimes your life changes for the better. I find it hard to believe that my life would be better with a child. Tell me more. Elaborate for me on why you don't want to have kids. Okay, overpopulation. Every little thing takes forever. Less personal time. Birth defects. The chance of Down syndrome goes up exponentially after 35. Debt. Kids cost a fortune. Debt. Body changes. At the risk of sounding vain, I am an actor, and I do have to watch my figure. The thought of stretch marks gives me anxiety. Fear of pregnancy and birth. My friend Austin told me what an episiotomy was, and I about fainted. Every time I see a birth video, it gives me the creeps. I honestly just don't want to have to deal with the pain and the morning sickness, weight gain, mood swings, intense labor, breastfeeding, postpartum depression. I could write a whole show just on my fears of pregnancy and birth. Give up acting career. I just don't see how I could juggle both. I saw a woman coming into an audition once with her baby and asked me to watch her baby while she went into the room. Yeah. What if I was a kidnapper? She doesn't know. I don't see myself being stupid enough to trust another actor to watch my baby during an audition. There's only one R. Loss of sleep. Let's be honest, I love my sleep, and I'm under no delusions here. When you have a baby, you just don't get any sleep. I've seen sleep deprivation in my friends. It's not pretty. No more trips. Traveling with a baby is just not practical. No more trips. Raising a child in this state of the world is just nuts. State of the world. Okay, Angie, I think that's sufficient for now. But I have more to add to my list. It's very long. I get the picture. I want to hear from Andy.
I feel like this change would benefit our lives. Yes, we'd have less personal time, but we'd have more family time. Yes, we'd lose some sleep in the beginning, but eventually kids do sleep through the night. As for her acting career, I keep telling her it would only make her a better actor to have gone through the experience of childbirth and parenting. And yes, we might incur a little bit of debt, but we're financially responsible and we'd be able to keep our costs down. Quite frankly, I wouldn't mind if she gained a little weight. If she got stretch marks, the hell with it. It'd only be a reminder of the precious gift she's given me. I think we have a lot to offer a child, and she's the only one I want to share this experience with. I think we'd make great parents, and our kid would be brought up in a loving environment.
Okay. I've heard what you both have to say, and here's what I suggest. Angie, put yourself in Andy's vision and picture your life happy with having kids. Andy, picture your life happy not having kids. Once you can get to a place where you are truly happy with either decision, you will find peace. At first, this was not easy. It was like I had to go back into my brain and rewire it again after I'd spent so much time and energy thinking I would never have kids. It took a long time, and for several years, I still was not ready. Andy and I got to a point where we just didn't bring it up because every time we did, we'd be in pain. If I took a step back and looked at the big picture, I could see Andy's point. I just had a hard time applying the big picture to my life. I was hyper-focused on just being selfish, but I loved this man with all of my heart. I also knew that having a child just to please him was not the right answer and would lead to regret and resentment. One evening, I attended a woman's fireside chat meeting at S Factor, where I took pole dancing for 2 years. It was just a way for women who took classes there to get together and talk about life and womanhood in a safe environment. One of the women in the circle was a new mom, and she shared her thoughts with the group through tears and tissues. I haven't had a good night's sleep in 3 months. I have to get a hotel room every couple of weeks just so that I can sleep for more than 20 minutes at a time. My boyfriend doesn't support me at all. It's like I have to do everything. It's so frustrating. I mean, I love my daughter, but she just drains every ounce of energy from me. My breasts are always in pain and they're starting to sag. I haven't even taken a shower in over a week. Now I'm starting to think that maybe it was a mistake having a child. We didn't plan to get pregnant, and now I feel a whole lot of regret around this whole thing. Now, I can understand that her situation was different than mine. I have a supportive husband who I know would be helpful with a baby around. But still, it was easy to use this experience as just another example of how awful having kids would really be. Another woman at that fireside chat meeting spoke up and told me that I just needed to make up my mind to want to have kids and to live happily in the decision, which is pretty much what our therapist had told me. Wouldn't I be giving up? I'd be defeated. I would have people around me pointing fingers saying, wait, I thought you didn't want to have kids. See, I told you you'd change your mind. Could I give up this easily? Could I really change my mind? I had been on birth control for 20 years by that point. Maybe I couldn't even get pregnant. I mean, yes, my family is fertile, but I'm older now. Maybe I can't even have kids anymore. Angie, it's nice to see you again. Hi, Dr. Patel. I'm just here to get another refill on my birth control prescription. Ah, yes, I see. And how old are you this year? It's in my chart. I had been going to her every year to get a refill on my birth control. 35 this year. Ah, yes, I see. Well, let's put your feet up in the stirrups. You know, Angie, you're not getting any younger. You may feel a little pressure here. Have you thought any more about having children? I'm just not ready to have kids. Ah, yes, I see. My daughter is your age, and she keeps telling me the same thing. And I keep telling her that one day she will not have the ability anymore, and she will regret letting the opportunity pass her by. I know. You tell me that every time I come. Yeah, I have thought a lot about it. Ah, yes, I see. I will write you a prescription, but do think about it. It will change your life. Thanks. In January 2013, after the apocalypse was supposed to have already happened with the Mayan calendar ending, I started doing the math. If I'm 36 now and I get off birth control and it takes me a year to even conceive, then I'll be pregnant at 37 and delivering a baby at 38. And then if it's so amazing we decide to have a second one, I'm looking at 40 years old for another one, maybe older. My biological clock was still not ticking, so I had to manually set the clock myself. And I decided the first step was to get off birth control. This was, without a shadow of a doubt, the hardest step for me to take. I was giving up my control. I didn't even know who I was without birth control. Would I become a raging hormonal mess? Who would I be now? I put both feet in front to take the leap and stopped taking my birth control. 2 months later, I was shopping at the drugstore and just happened to think, I should get a pregnancy test just to see. I was 1 week late with my period, but I'd been regulated by my prescription for so long that I didn't know what to expect with the timing of my cycle. Depending on the concentration of HCG, whatever that is, positive results may be observed in as little as 40 seconds. You can conclude you are pregnant if a rose pink colored band appears in the test portion of the window. You can conclude you're not pregnant if no rose pink, holy shit. You can conclude you are pregnant if a rose pink colored band appears in the test portion of the window. Here I was, 36 years old, so dead set against having kids for 15 years of my adult life, laughing my head off after getting the news. That really surprised me. I thought for sure I hadn't been ready, and when I found out, I was elated. I immediately went back to the drugstore to get 3 more pregnancy tests just to make sure. And all 4 were positive. There was no doubt I was pregnant. Andy got home the next evening. When I told him, he jumped out of the couch and ran outside to proclaim to the world, I'm gonna be a daddy! It was one of the happiest moments of our lives. My younger sister, Dina, got married 21 days later in April 2013 in Maui. Hawaii is so romantic and beautiful and such an amazing setting for a wedding. I didn't even mind too much that I had to cancel our horseback riding trip to the Haleakala crater because of my pregnancy. I had to not feel sorry for myself when I realized that I couldn't have sushi, no alcohol, no coffee, no smoking. I couldn't even get in the hot tub during our trip. I just had to be okay with it. If I was pregnant, the last thing I wanted to do was have a bad attitude about it. Still, that part sucked. We did get to tell my parents in person at Dina's wedding, though. Since they lived 3,000 miles away, the opportunity to tell Mom and Dad in person was not something we'd expected. We had our first ultrasound the following week, April 26th, and this time I was not going back to Dr. Patel. Hello there, I'm Dr. Silverman. I understand you believe you're pregnant? Yep, I took 4 tests. All right, well, let's take a look. Yeah, right there, I see. There's a sac. How far along did you say you were? Well, your receptionist told me that I couldn't book an appointment until I was about 8 weeks along, so based on the first day of my last period, I should be about 8.5 weeks now, actually. Doesn't look like you're that far along to me. Perhaps you have your dates documented incorrectly? Maybe, but I mean, I was taking pretty extensive notes on my cycle and possible conception dates. All right, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take your blood sample today and again on Monday, and we'll see how your hormone levels are doing. Sounds good. Thanks. We went home and immediately started calling the rest of our family. Well, the doctor says that I'm not as far along as I thought, so he's checking my hormone levels. Yeah, we got to see the baby on the ultrasound today. It was really cool. Yeah, I know. I didn't think I'd ever get pregnant either. Pretty exciting though, huh? The following week, we found out that our pregnancy was going to end in a miscarriage. My hormone levels had gone down and there was still no heartbeat, just a simple sac in my uterus. Now, just to be clear, this was in no way hugely devastating news. In fact, One of the first things I thought of was what I'd missed in Hawaii. I could have had sushi, alcohol, coffee. I could have done the horseback riding trip after all. After the appointment, we just went to get beers and burgers and called our family to tell them the news. One thing I didn't realize was how this miscarriage was going to work exactly. It was like my brain knew that I'd be having a miscarriage, but my body hadn't gotten the message. Dr. Silverman told me that we had 3 options. We could wait it out naturally, I could take drugs to speed up the process, or I could have a D&C procedure, which is essentially an abortion. Andy and I agreed not to jump into surgery right away, to just wait it out naturally, so we waited. 10 days later, the doctor confirmed my hormone levels were still dropping, but no miscarriage. Another week went by and still nothing. 2 days later, Dr. Silverman prescribed a drug called Cytotec to help speed up the process. He also gave me a prescription for Vicodin for the pain. Wait, pain? I'm not supposed to feel pain, am I? He said the drugs would start to take effect within 8 hours and that I should take off the day off of work. So I took the drugs and waited. 8 hours passed, nothing. 12 hours passed, nothing. I went to work the next day and didn't feel anything. Dr. Silverman said that it's rare that Cytotec doesn't work and that I should just go ahead and schedule a D&C procedure. 2 months after I'd found out that I was pregnant, we were right back to where we'd started. And after the procedure, we could still have sex, but we had to wait another 3 months to get pregnant to give my body time to heal. Shopping for condoms as a married woman who'd been with the same man for 13 years and hasn't used condoms since 2000 was a very weird experience. Condoms are expensive. I had no idea. I found out that I was pregnant this time on December 16th, 2013. Since it was so close to Christmas, I decided to wait until then to tell Andy the news. 9 whole days. Oh, that was brutal. I got him a onesie for Christmas that says, Daddy's sidekick, as a gift to break the news. I videotaped him opening the package so that I could post it on Facebook and tell the world that this is how Andy found out I was pregnant.
Aw, Daddy's sidekick. How cute. You're not pregnant, are you?
Let's just say, not exactly the reaction I was going for in my Facebook video announcement. We were guarded this time around. We only told a very select few people until the 3rd month was over. I mean, we were hoping that we didn't have to go through a miscarriage again, but we were not worried about it. And pregnancy was so easy. No morning sickness, no severe rapid weight gain, no ankle swelling, no weird cravings. I mean, for the first 4 months, I barely even noticed I was pregnant. It was such an easy experience for me and has been. You know, it's been a crazy trip, but I can honestly say that despite all of my misgivings, I really am ready to be a mom. I'm excited for this new adventure in our lives. I'm excited for our marriage to grow and change. I've also gained a new perspective on how much my parents must love me. I've heard that the love between a mother and her baby is unlike any other love in the world. And I'm looking forward to experiencing that love from the other side. As for my list, at the risk of sounding elitist, I've been told that Andy and I are the types of people who should be having kids so that we can manifest our love by having a child and spreading light and positive energy throughout the world. Now, I still do believe that overpopulation is a huge issue, but I also believe that our conscious choice to have a child is helping the problem rather than hurting it. Throughout this experience, I've come to realize that it's time for me to slow down in life a little bit, to learn patience, to take a step back and allow my life to be what it is, to live in the moment, like Eckhart Tolle suggests, and enjoy the power of now. I love my personal time, and I fill it with working on projects, reading books, doing activities that I enjoy. My mom always told me that I like my life where the water level is right about here, where I'm just about ready to drown, but I can still breathe. She's asked me many times in my life if that water level has gotten up over my eyes yet. When I told her that I was producing a one-woman show that I wanted to perform at 8 months pregnant, she said, "It wasn't enough just to be pregnant, was it, Angie?" Adding a child will mean that I'll have to take a step back and realize it's not all about my agenda anymore. And soon I'll be right back into somebody else's chaos. Soccer games, dance recitals, gymnastics classes, swim meets. So I'll actually be able to keep my tradition of keeping that water level to right about here, but it'll be different. I'll be shaping somebody else's personal time. We've had testing for birth defects, and anything that hasn't shown up in the test is something we'll have to deal with as it comes. I'm no longer afraid of having a child with birth defects. And yes, having kids is expensive, but we're older now, and we understand what we need to do to not fall deep into debt. I mean, perhaps I'm being naive here, but I'm not so worried about debt anymore. Things always seem to work out for us. Yes, we'll have our financial challenges, but we can get through those challenges together. I've been active throughout my pregnancy, and I enjoy my baby belly. I haven't had much weight gain, no stretch marks, and I think I'll be able to bounce back after the pregnancy. And if I don't bounce all the way back to my pre-pregnancy shape, that's okay too. After all, Andy wouldn't mind if I put on a few pounds. The last 8 months have taught me to not be afraid anymore. I have a team of people ready to help me through the birth, and I'm looking forward to the experience. I understand childbirth to be a spiritual experience now. It's not just about the pain. It's also about having an amazing journey to bring life into this world. It's temporary, and if billions of women have done it before me, I can do it too. Writing and performing this show has proven to me that I don't have to give up my acting career. I mean, of course, it probably will slow down a little bit at first, but I think Andy's right. Being a mom will help me become a better actor because I'll be able to add that experience to my repertoire. And yes, we will lose sleep, but I'm prepared. It'll all be okay. Our trips and adventures will be different now. We get to share our experiences with someone new, and that's exciting. We get to see places through the eyes of someone who has never traveled. We get to take our child to Disney World for the first time, to go to the beach, to go camping, to go snowboarding for the first time. We have a lot to share with our little one. This one is tough. How do we raise a child in the current state of the world? The best way I can answer that is that we will teach our child what's real. We will lift the veil. We will not sugarcoat it, and we will teach our child what responsibility we have to our family and our society. Be kind. Love with every fiber of your being. Understand people by looking at life through their eyes. Be generous. Think outside the box. Be ready to fail and to keep going. Say yes to opportunities. Be loving. Laugh a lot. Enjoy living. And if we can teach that, maybe this won't be so bad after all.
Like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Well, give me all you got and don't hold it back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why.